When we think about historical disasters, our minds usually jump to massive explosions, catastrophic collapses, or complete system failures. But the story I'm about to tell you doesn't start with a bang. It begins with something almost invisible. A tiny mistake, a single missed detail, a decision that seemed completely harmless at the time, but would set in motion a chain of events that would change a nation forever. This is a story about how the smallest oversight can lead to the biggest consequences. And it starts in a place where everyone felt completely safe. The system at the heart of this event was a marvel of its time. It was considered robust, brilliantly engineered, and was trusted by millions across the country. It had a stellar track record. Routine inspections were passed with flying colors, and any warnings that did pop up were considered minor, easily dismissed. Confidence in the system wasn't just high. It was absolute. Perhaps it was too high. The very people tasked with its operation believed it was virtually infallible, a testament to human ingenuity. This unwavering trust, however, created a dangerous blind spot. In an environment where failure seemed impossible, the seeds of disaster were quietly being sown, not through malice or incompetence, but through complacency. The stage was set not for a celebration of engineering, but for a lesson in humility that would be learned the hard way. Buried deep within pages and pages of operational procedures was a single critical assumption. It was a small detail concerning a specific component, one that was expected to behave in a predictable way under all circumstances. Because of this assumption, a certain verification step was deemed unnecessary, a check that could be delayed or skipped to save time. No alarm sounded. No red flags were raised. Technically, no rules were even broken. But beneath the surface of this well-oiled machine, the conditions were slowly, silently aligning for failure. It's like a puzzle where pieces are being put into the wrong places one by one. You can't see the full, distorted picture yet, but every incorrect placement makes the final, catastrophic image inevitable. The system was being pushed closer to a hidden edge, and nobody even knew they were near the cliff. When a complex system relies on unspoken assumptions, failure rarely announces its arrival. Instead, it creeps in, spreading silently from one part to another. That's exactly what happened here. The initial overlooked detail started a quiet chain reaction. One automated process, not behaving as expected, began to subtly affect the next. A critical safeguard, designed to prevent this very scenario, failed to engage. Why? Because the conditions for its activation were so unusual, they hadn't been fully anticipated. Then, backup systems, the last line of defense, didn't activate as they were supposed to. On the control panels, everything still looked relatively normal. The operators, relying on their training and the system's history of reliability, had no reason to suspect that an invisible crisis was unfolding right under their noses. They were flying blind, unaware that their ship was slowly taking on water. Then came the moment it all fell apart. It happened in an instant. The moment of calm, confident control evaporated. Indicators on the control panels suddenly went wild, spiking into the red. The readings were erratic, nonsensical, defying the logic of the system's design. The operators tried to regain control, but it was like trying to steer a ship in a hurricane. The system was responding in ways they had never seen, and control was slipping away faster than any manual or emergency procedure could account for. What began as a tiny, imperceptible oversight had now cascaded, amplified through the system, and become an unstoppable force. The point of no return had been crossed. The quiet, creeping failure had finally found its voice, and it was a roar of chaos. The collapse was no longer a possibility. It was happening. In the aftermath, investigators pored over every piece of evidence, trying to answer one question: why didn't anyone stop it? They didn't find a single villain or a lone saboteur. The truth was far more unsettling. First, they discovered that the procedures everyone followed were dangerously outdated. They were written for earlier versions of the system and hadn't kept up with modifications. Second, there was a culture of trusting human judgment over automated warnings. Operators had become so accustomed to false alarms that they started to discount them, relying on their own gut feelings instead. And most tragically, warnings did exist. The system had tried to signal the impending problem. But these signals were misunderstood, misinterpreted as routine glitches rather than the critical alerts they were. It wasn't one person's fault. It was a collection of small, seemingly independent decisions made by good people, all stacking together to create a pathway to disaster. The consequences of this failure reached far beyond the immediate sight. The ripple effects were felt across the entire nation. Entire industries, reliant on similar technology, were forced to pause their operations, triggering economic shockwaves. Public trust in the institutions meant to keep them safe was profoundly shaken. People began to question the very systems they depended on daily. In response, emergency protocols and government regulations were not just updated. They were completely rewritten from the ground up. New laws were passed, imposing stricter oversight and accountability. America learned a painful, expensive, and unforgettable lesson about the hidden dangers of complexity and complacency. It was a national wake-up call, demonstrating that reliability in the past is no guarantee of safety in the future. The legacy of this event permanently changed the landscape of safety culture. In the wake of the disaster, a new era of vigilance was born. Safety checks, once seen as a formality, were multiplied and given top priority. The concept of redundancy became mandatory. Critical systems were required to have multiple backups, ensuring that a single point of failure could never again cause a total collapse. Training standards for operators were dramatically increased, with a new focus on simulation and crisis management. Perhaps most importantly, the idea of near-miss reporting became a cornerstone of safety. Instead of hiding small errors, organizations were now encouraged to report them, analyze them, and learn from them before they could escalate. In a very real sense, the modern safety culture we rely on today was forged in the fires of this one catastrophic failure. The most terrifying disasters don't start with explosions and chaos. They don't announce themselves with sirens and flashing lights. They begin silently, in moments of absolute confidence. They start with the assumption that everything is fine, that the system is too good to fail, that a small detail doesn't matter. This story serves as a chilling reminder that in a complex world, the smallest, most overlooked mistake can quietly set the stage for the most devastating consequences. Because sometimes, the real danger isn't what you see. It's what you're so sure of that you don't even bother to look. Thanks for watching. If you found this story insightful, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next deep dive into the events that shape our world.